In Warhammer 40k, there exists a faction of hyper-intelligent cyborgs who worship machinery as divine beings. These people genuinely believe that if your equipment stops working, the solution is to apply sacred oils, recite holy scripture, and politely ask the machine to cooperate. So naturally, when they discover a planet full of ancient alien super technology, they decide the most reasonable course of action is to steal everything not nailed down, or destroy everything that is. This was a mistake.
Did you think you could enter this place of wisdom without my knowing? I have watched you since you dared breach the orbit of our world.
Warhammer games have always been a bit of a gamble. For every excellent title, there are several others shambling around in various states of disrepair. So when I first heard about a turn-based strategy game starring the galaxy's most technologically confused religious fanatics, I wasn't exactly expecting much. But what I got instead was one of the most atmospheric, unique, and surprisingly accessible strategy games I've ever played. If you don't know much about 40k or the Adeptus Mechanicus, let me give you a quick breakdown. Imagine it's 40,000 years in the future. Technology is advanced and all sci-fi and shit, but it's really impractical. See, a couple of tens of thousands of years ago, technology was at an all-time high. Humanity was so advanced that they may as well have been gods. But as per usual in cool sci-fi lore, the ancient civilization collapsed, leaving much of their technology behind, with little to no instruction on how to use it. While they may be the main focus of the narrative, don't mistake humanity for the good guys. The Imperium of Man is a brutal, galaxy-spanning nightmare state, and the Adeptus Mechanicus fits right in. While most humans would view the technology left behind by ancient man with great superstition, the Adeptus Mechanicus is obsessed with this technology and will stop at nothing to get their metallic grubs all over it. They're also not too fond of creating new things, mainly because they don't understand how it works. They sure know how to build shit based on schematics though. But if you slap enough oil on it and pray to it hard enough, a lot of machines usually boot up after a minute or two. On one of their exploratory missions, they come across a planet that is a Necron tomb world. What, that needs an explanation too? Fine. Necrons are essentially ancient Egyptian space robots. Millions of years ago, they traded their frail organic bodies for immortal metal ones, conquered huge portions of the galaxy, and then went to sleep inside massive tomb worlds scattered throughout space. But now, the craziest hoarders in the galaxy are on their way to pilfer their junk and add it to the collection. That might be enough to get things stirring. Let the battles commence. Believe it or not, this is still pretty simplified, and there is more to the story of the game. Warhammer 40k Mechanicus is a turn-based strategy game that pits you as the AdMech against the hordes of Necrons slowly waking up in the various tombs inside the planet Silva Tenebris. Once upon a time, there was a human colony here, but that was a long time ago, and the recon crew wasn't entirely sure what they'd find here. It was aliens. As the funny robot men go snooping around the planet, the more the Necrons become aware that something is going on, and the more troops begin to wake up. Eventually, the planet will be completely overrun with Necron soldiers, and your mission is to do everything you need to do before that happens. Every mission you take on will be brought up by one of the ranking officials to the Archmagos Faustinius, and they represent different groups or factions present within the AdMech and on the ship. One is all about procuring different technologies to be studied, another for aiding the ground troops, and another the religious delegate from the cult Mechanicus, who is intent on purifying the planet, even if that means full-on exterminatus. Each mission will have a difficulty rating, and the rewards for each matches the risk you'll be taking by deploying on the mission. But before you go to the mission, you'll have the opportunity to upgrade your cohort of tech priests who will be serving as your main units as you battle the Egyptian space robots. This can be done by using Blackstone, a resource you'll be finding as you go on missions. Upgrading their ranks gives them new perks and increases their equipment slots, which is where you'll be slotting any weapons, armaments, or support tools onto your character. The more powerful something is, the more slots it's gonna need. Once everything is ready, you choose your mission, choose your deployment, and send them fuckers in for some grave robbing. This is also where you can include any supplementary troops on the mission. At the start of every mission, you'll be guiding your cohort through different rooms, each usually containing an encounter of some sort that can affect how the run is going. As you move, the awakening meter will be increasing, and each stage of it comes with different effects. 1 is just a warning, 2 means more enemies in battle, 5 means something is going seriously wrong. When you make it to the goal, you'll encounter a battle, which is where the real gameplay starts. It's a lot of setup just to get to the game you paid for, so all that waiting better pay off. Battles start by positioning your troops in a designated area and then letting nature take its course. At the top is the turn order, so it's key to keep an eye on this throughout the battle. As far as combat goes, there's actually quite a bit of depth to how the different classes you can build your tech priests into interact with the battle before you. It doesn't really open up until much later in the game, once you've upgraded your priests to absolutely absurd levels. Weapons deal either physical or energy damage, and enemies have separate defenses against both. Strong armor can completely negate attacks, so understanding enemy weaknesses is absolutely key. Fortunately, every tech priest carries a servo skull that can analyze enemies, revealing exactly how best to dismantle them. But physical and energy don't cross over, so high physical defense does absolutely nothing to protect from an energy bomb that takes up half the map. Speaking of, the kinds of weapons you can equip are all really varied and have a lot of different attacks that can, in conjunction with the skill trees, lead to some crazily fine-tuned tech priests. This guy only has an axe and no long-range weapons, but each swing of his mighty hunk of metal is swung with enough force to fell 1,000 trees, and any enemy wanting to fire a ranged weapon after taking a smack to the face will then need to move out of the way to move out of melee range, which triggers an opportunity attack that smacks them again, usually to death. This tech priest only carries long-range weaponry and is susceptible to close-up attacks, but packs enough firepower to level a small country from across the entire map, and they usually have enough abilities to ensure that it costs next to nothing to do so. Last enemy has 1 point of damage? Don't worry, this tech priest servo skull does 1 damage to any enemy, bypassing all defenses. But death is not the end for Necrons, because they wouldn't be hyper overpowered alien death machines if it was. After depleting an enemy's health to 0, they'll drop to a hibernation stage, and will reanimate after a set number of turns if not finished off after defeat. This can be done with a single point of damage and ensures that they're gone from the fight for good. Attacks with most weapons past the very basic starters will require cognition points to use. These can be obtained through points on the map that restore each round, abilities, random events, or by felling Necrons. Generally, the more powerful a weapon is, the more cognition it will need before you can use it. Enemy units are varied, and each one has the ability to be an actual threat to your mission, especially in the early game. This game is really hard, but honestly, once you've mastered it, it becomes the clanker bullying game, which to me is when the game feels the best. I don't care if it feels like it's too easy, because by the time you make it to this point, it is absolutely earned. And besides, there's enough RNG bullshit to make the game still feel difficult enough to be interesting. If it does become too easy, there are additional modifiers you can add to your game that allows you to adjust the difficulty to your liking. At the end of every mission, the awakening meter at the top left is added to the overall awakening of the planet, so it creates this delicate balance of urgency and the need to proceed carefully without striding through too many traps and letting everyone and their metallic mother know where you are. The more you wake shit up, the more shit wakes up in different parts of the planet, leading to different tomb complexes for missions to take place in, with their own maps and enemies and gimmicks to have fun with. One thing that I really enjoy about this game is how it handles the bosses of each tomb complex. Upon opening a new tomb complex, a mission to take out that area's leader becomes available. It's usually very hard at first, until you naturally progress and get stronger. Even then, the battles aren't pushovers, and all have some very interesting gimmicks you'll have to strategize around. At any time, once all the sectors have been unlocked, you can take out the big final Necron that's more or less the head honcho. During this battle, any bosses that you have not yet taken on will be present in the fight, and you'll have to contend with them as you target the final big bad. But any that you've previously killed will not show up, so you have the option to either give yourself a straight shot or an absolute hell gauntlet to get through. Those boss missions can be really tough, so is it better to save them for a place that's not on their home turf? But the question is, will you have time? That awakening meter is growing by the mission, you know. This is a strategy game set in an already established universe, so there's a lot to talk about here, but I hope that you've got a good idea of what you'll be seeing when you play Mechanicus. And now I have the absolute pleasure of talking about what you'll be hearing in Mechanicus. This game's music and sound design. Holy shit. Mainly the music, but don't get me wrong, the sound design is good too, but the music is just so good. Sound effects are punchy and have real weight behind them when doing things like smacking alien robots with a giant axe. All the weapons your tech priests will be using sound great and are really varied between the different types of weapons, both projectile and melee, that you'll be using. The Necron's weapon sounds are a little less varied, but they still have this satisfyingly thick sound to all of their energy weapons. And then there's the voices. Most of these guys aren't speaking with full sentences or even really words. Tech priests and other members of the AdMech really like to augment themselves, even to the point of being only able to speak in weird, garbled, technological screeching. But then there's the Necron voices.
This pain for 1,000,000 years, I have built it.
These guys are alien robots, and they're still easier to understand than these freaks. This is an absolutely excellent example of building upon the world with sound design alone. On some level, we as humans in the 21st century are able to relate to the evil alien robot better than we can the human robots. Just goes to show how bizarre and not human the humans of the 41st millennia are. Now, you've been hearing it in the background, I'm sure, but let's address the music. It's really fucking good. Part of what makes the AdMech so unique is the fact that they quite literally worship technology. Earlier I mentioned that they pray to it, and they definitely do, but with the worship also comes other liturgical aspects. Another way the devs utilize sound to heighten the atmosphere and lore is the fact that most of the music sounds like something you'd hear billowing out of a grungy, futuristic church for people that worship metal. The use of an organ mixed with techno beats will never not be cool. The music is used really well too. It swells as the action picks up and leaves plenty of room for calmer moments when things aren't as crazy. Overall, I've really got no problem with the music and sound design in this game, and it's honestly one of my favorite sounding games for the very reasons I mentioned. You try listening to Children of the Omnissiah without briefly considering converting. And now, it is unfortunately time to talk about this game's issues, and being a Warhammer game, it is not free of them. Warhammer games are pretty notorious, from ranging from great but flawed to unplayable pieces of garbage, but thankfully, Mechanicus is pretty exemplary of the former of the two options. For as long as this game has been around, there are still bugs and glitches that were there years ago, and at this point, something tells me they're never going to be fixed. Sometimes your tech priests will play animations for actions that they're not currently taking. Weapon portraits will incorrectly indicate that a weapon has been used, and some items don't behave like you think they should. For the most part, it's just kind of centered around weird ways the game operates, and I could be wrong on this, but it almost seems like the game breaks more and more the longer your session goes for. Most of these things on their own wouldn't be such a big deal for a game if it was just released, but this game is certainly not new. But I digress, Warhammer game and all that. I also hate to mention it because I know how it'll sound, but there are quite a few typos in the text as well, which is, again, not a big deal, but when characters interact almost exclusively through unspoken, in any intelligible language anyway, dialogue boxes, they do tend to stick out, and there's more than you would generally expect from a game with this much text. It's really kind of unfortunate just how many small issues this game has, and I can totally see how they can build up to a point that would make someone dislike it and not want to play. The last major thing that I want to talk about is the RNG mechanics, primarily in the dungeon crawl portions of each mission. When you select a room to go into on any of the maps, you'll often be presented with a scenario with 3 options on how to proceed. Each option is described, but there's really nothing to indicate which might be the correct answer, and more often than not, you are going to choose something based completely on your own intuition that completely fucks you over. Your units will often take damage, Necrons will gain initiative in the next battle so that they all move before you, and your awakening meter can increase drastically if you just make the wrong decision. But there's no way to know what that wrong decision is. Nothing feels worse in this game than clearing the final battle with 0 awakening, only to make the wrong decision after that and the awakening level rising. Most of the decisions you can make seem rather arbitrary, and more often than not is going to be a detriment to the encounter. It adds variety and keeps things interesting, sure, but when you make wrong decision after wrong decision with no indication of what is right or wrong, it can really suck. It's not fun to go through the whole dungeon only to have your first battle plagued with extra Necrons who get to move before you do, and that happens more often than you might think. So all in all, Mechanicus is a great game that I love very much, and I've sank a lot of time into it both for this review and before, and I will certainly be putting more time into it as well. While it does have some weak points that could justifiably make someone not want to play it, if the combat interests you, I think it's worth your time. Even outside of Warhammer, it's a good strategy game with tons and tons of replay value. And I mean, come on, everybody's got to start somewhere with Warhammer. May as well start with a game that's accessible both mechanically as a game and to the world of 40K. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, be sure to leave a like and don't forget to subscribe. If you liked hearing my voice, be sure to check out some of the other videos on screen now. All that said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!